When you think of Paris, you probably think of the idyllic scenes of the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe, Champs-Élysées, the Louvre Museum. But if you came to visit Paris at the moment, you might be surprised to just see the streets full of rubbish. So what is going on in France at the moment? Since he was elected in 2017, it's safe to say Emmanuel Macron has had a rocky time as president of France. 1 year after his election, the famous Gilets jaunes protests began, and since then there have been countless protests and strikes all across France. This social movement in particular has really affected the transport systems and rubbish disposal in the city. The metro strikes have meant that lots of students haven't been able to go to school, people haven't been able to go to work, which has really affected everyday life in Paris. And the rubbish disposal means that everywhere you look in Paris, there are massive piles of rubbish bins that need to be taken out. On the 17th of March, it was estimated that there were 10,000 tonnes of rubbish on the streets of Paris. And as Paris is known to have more rats than people, there are concerns about public health and spread of disease, even though some private companies are trying their best to resolve the problem themselves. These particular strikes and protests have been going on since the 19th of January. People in France are protesting against a proposed reform bill moving the retirement age from 62 to 64. If this gets passed, the change would be gradual, with the age increasing by 3 months every year until the year 2030. France, like many other European countries, has an ageing population, which means that it's becoming more and more difficult for the country to support older generations if people retire at the age of 62. So if this law gets passed, what would happen is that France would gain 17.7 billion euros a year by the year 2030. So if France could be getting such a huge amount of money from making this change, why are people protesting? Well, on the 16th of March, Macron decided that he was going to pass this reform bill through Parliament without having a vote, triggering Article 49.3 in the Constitution. And this is a change that people are particularly angry about, because it feels undemocratic and like people haven't been able to have their own say on a policy which has already proven to be very, very unpopular amongst the French population.
On s'est vu que les grèves sont la manière la plus efficace pour créer un changement.
Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, la grève, c'est la manière la plus efficace pour que les gens se retrouvent, en particulier les travailleurs, se retrouvent sur des revendications et demandent du changement. Est-ce que ça permet d'avoir le changement? En fait, il faut une série de grèves et il faut un rapport de force qui augmente. Donc c'est beaucoup plus compliqué.
Donc pour moi, à mon avis, je pense que c'est pas tellement efficace, parce que si les gens font la même chose tout le temps comme ça, et rien ne change pas. Mais il faut trouver une autre manière d'éviter leur grève en fait.
When the French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne announced this change, members of Parliament booed, and some even stood up and sang the French national anthem to stop her from being able to speak. Marine Le Pen, Macron's former opposition in the presidential race, has also announced that she is filing a no-confidence motion in the government, with many other MPs joining these calls. According to a poll launched by France 24, a popular French media outlet here, around 8 out of 10 people oppose this reform being pushed through in this way, including a majority of people who voted for Macron in the first round of the last presidential election. On the day that it was announced they were triggering Article 49.3, mass protests took place here at Place la Concorde. It's estimated that between 2,000 and 7,000 people were here, and around 217 people were arrested by the police, who had to use tear gas to keep people out of the square. At the protests, people were burning things, and there were lots of chants going on, including one saying, "We've beheaded our kings before, we can do that to our leaders again." These protests aren't just taking place in Paris, but also in other major cities in France, like Lyon, Toulouse, Marseille. So the future is unclear, but what we do know is that people are still very angry, so it's likely the situation is going to carry on for a while to come. I've been Lottie Gibson, reporting from Paris with PalTV. Since this report was filmed, the situation in France has changed slightly. The bin strikes have finished for now, although there is a chance that they could restart in the future. Public transport is still seeing severe disruptions due to strikes, and there is no indication as to when this may finish. Protests and riots have continued to take place across France. As things stand currently, the reform is still planned to be passed, but still faces a huge amount of opposition, so the future remains uncertain.